Pacific Rim is a movie that I admit to being pretty skeptical about for a while. I just didn't really know what to make of it. Of course, there was always a part of me that was like, giant robots fighting! That's the greatest thing ever! But, there was also this part of me just nipping away at the back of my mind and thinking, no, it can't be that good. It's just gonna be a dumb popcorn movie that's gonna be, it's gonna have an abundance of explosions but be lacking in character, and it's not gonna be that good. It'll be fun, but nothing really great. But as I saw more of the trailers and I began to see more of the influences that were being thrown into it, just, from like old Godzilla movies, other monster movies, Evangelion, even a bit of Gurren Lagann, like with the way the head is a separate component and it takes two pilots, it's even kind of harkening back to the headmasters and whatnot. So, yeah, as I saw more of the stuff and the apparent fondness for all this kind of material, I just got really hyped for it. Not just because it was giant robots fighting, but because I could see that they're trying to bring something with this cool kind of, anime and old school monster movie flavor to us. They're trying to give us people in the US something like this. So it's just really neat to see this American spin on the good old monster movies and whatnot. And it was a very fun film. And it was a lot better than I expected it to be. Like, I always knew I was going to enjoy it a little bit, but I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. This is an exceptional film. The acting is pretty good. The action is a lot better than I could have even hoped for it to be. And it did have a good emotional gut punch. Let me just break it down. First, I'm going to talk about the Jaegers and the Kaijus, the robots and the monsters themselves, and how they're designed. Then I'll talk about the acting and all that. I really, really like the designs of all these things. I was just surprised by how imaginative a lot of them managed to be. And they managed to give them each, like, their own flavor. You didn't get the feeling that they were all made by some corporation in America. These came from all sorts of different parts of the world, many nationalities. I was kind of surprised we never saw, like, an actual flag stamped on any of them. It would have been kind of fun to see. But it's neat because a lot of these robots, these Jaegers, did wind up having a certain character to them. They were unique and they were fun to look at, and you could distinguish them in the midst of a battle by more than just their colors. They all had a really cool shape, a silhouette. You could instantly recognize, oh, that's the one piloted by those guys. I know that one. And the monsters were the same. There were a couple just in this one fight near the end that I kind of got mixed up a couple times, but I'm like, oh, wait, no, not that. But I almost never mistook these things for each other. They all had a really good shape and a good weight to them. One thing that kind of bugged me about the Transformers in the Michael Bay movies, and keep in mind, I don't mind the Bayformers design. I'm actually pretty forgiving of it. I actually like a lot of these designs. But one problem with them is that they were all so weightless. Like, you never really got that much of a punch from them. They never seemed that heavy. They never really seemed to do that much damage. Anytime they hit each other, you just saw little flakes fall off. It was like a bunch of shells on a skeleton. These robots and the monsters are nothing like that. The Jaegers are very cool, much more simplified, more sleek, compact designs. They're more rugged. You really get a sense of weight from them, with the way they move. You get a sense of how massive they are, and just how much power, how much force it must take just to make these things move and not collapse under their own weight. And it's the same with the monsters. Even though it's all CG and you know none of it's real, it's still fun to watch because the fights are just so visceral. It does come pretty close to the thrill of seeing a couple guys in suits knocking each other's heads, And overall, it was just a lot of great designs, a lot of great action, and I did wind up being pretty thrilled because this isn't going to be much of a spoiler, but some of the mechs do get destroyed throughout the film, and some of them pretty close together, like even within the same scene. And there aren't a lot of these mechs, so every time something like this happens, you get like, oh, it's a big blow to humanity. Our chances of surviving this conflict at all just decreased by like that much. And it gets to a point where you're thinking, how could they possibly survive this? How could they make it out of this? It's not like they just have an endless assembly of these things. There really is an impact whenever one of them falls. You're thinking, oh no. And now for the story and the acting. The characters, they were okay. None of them really annoyed me. Even the ones that you'd think were intended to be annoying, and even were a little annoying, still had some moments that made me really like them. And the better performances, there are characters whose motivations may seem kind of unsavory at certain, not unsavory. There are certain characters that you might not relate to at first, but in time you will relate to them and you will understand where they're coming from. Even if you still disagree with them completely by the end of the film, you're going to understand them. You're going to see why they think and feel this way, why they stick to their ideals and all that. They're pretty simple characters, but they're still really likable. And it deals with a lot of really, really good themes like, well, PTSD, that's pretty much a given with all this destruction and whatnot, but also empathy. Because, like, the creatures and their masters, whatever force brought them into this world, is clearly just completely devoid of empathy or compassion or anything like that. And that's what ties us humans together. That's our strength. That's what gives us the power to drive them back. It's basically the power friendship that you'd expect to see, talked about in an anime or something. But they don't talk about it here. You just see it for yourself. You see it happening in the action. And it's just really, really swell. I think that's the clear divide between us. They are just this endless horde of these mindless beasts, and then you've got us, these creatures who really bond, and that's what gives us our power. That's what, that's our advantage in the end. Because even though by the end of the film the humans are just lucky to barely scrape by and get a victory, it's just so satisfying. Because like I said, there's some pretty hopeless scenes in this movie where you think there's no way, oh, it's over, man, game over. And then when you see they do pull some out of their hat, it's like, yes! Mm! Now, one character that really stole the show, and I'm sure a lot of people have already talked about her, is Mako. I should have looked up her actress's real name. Anyway, this character was my favorite. I just loved her. I can't get enough of cool, strong female characters in movies like this. And she was never, really abrasive. She never seemed to talk down to others or anything like that. She was still subdued and warm and just had that, womanly feel. But she was tough. She wasn't gonna, let anyone mess with her. And when you see what she's been through, it's just, it just really hits you. It's akin to dreams that a lot of kids have, nightmares, where they're being chased by a monster or something, and then you see the things that have happened to her, and you're like, oh, that's horrible, oh my gosh. And let me tell you, this film is loud. During the fights, during the attacks of the kaijus, the monsters, all that, it took a little getting used to. I've been to a lot of movies lately that have been pretty loud. Even the Transformers movies were really loud. But this movie, all the sounds were just really well done. And just when they slam into you, you're just sucked even more into what's going on. And you get a better sense of just the scale of this and how stupendous it all is. Anyway, this was a pretty swell movie. It was a lot better than I thought it would end up being. It's just it's a good solid movie for people who like anime, people who like kaiju movies, people who like Godzilla, people who like all that sorts of stuff. It's a great action movie, but it's not just that, here's the thing. The problem a lot of people have with these kinds of movies is that they often tend to be all action and little character, It's just the fighting, that's what grabs people's attention, but only for so long. But this movie isn't like that. It's got some pretty good action, but it's also got emotion to back it up. It does have interesting human characters who, while not necessarily that complex, are still likable and relatable enough to carry the film. I will admit the main lead's performance was kinda weak. It was okay, and I could understand him, and I liked him well enough. It's just not quite as fleshed out as I think it could have been, but it was okay. There was nothing about this movie that I really found bad. The performances were good, the action was great. It's just a really solid movie. It's more than just a popcorn movie. It's unique in how it pays homage to so many interesting Japanese schlock, and just how well the fight scenes are handled. Just the sense of weight and stuff that gives the monsters and the Jaegers this sense of, you just get the feeling that they are real in some way. Even though it's CG, they're never real, and it would be nice if they could use props every now and then. Just the way they're handled, just the physics, and just how they move and everything. You do get a sense of what it would be like to have an actual creature like that looming over you. It's just a really swell film that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I felt compelled to talk about it, just because it really surprised me. At first I thought it is going to be okay. Then I thought, yeah, okay, I bet it's going to be pretty good. Then I see it, I'm like, that was great! So anyway, go see Pacific Rim if you can. It's just really fun. And, it's got heart. That's the best way I can say this. This movie has heart. Something that a lot of movies are really lacking in nowadays, but this has in spades. So yeah. Go see it.